And another thing about creative financing, which you was talking about subject to, is most people don't know what to do in a subject to situation. They're afraid, they're missing payments, they don't have any options. And so as investors, when you come in with that kind of a strategy, you're giving them options. Mm-hmm. You're helping them free up either the burden, free up maybe even some money, because we could help them out with a little bit of money depending on how much equity they have. We could catch up their payments or help them save their credit. So that's a whole strategy that's kind of the same thing as owner financing, but just completely different. All right, welcome back.
Excited to be here.
I'm excited too. My name is Jason Andrus.
I'm Colter Hansen.
And we are excited. It's been a minute since we've done a podcast.
It has. I mean, you throw a holiday in there and, running to events and, just chasing life.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It takes us a minute to put it all together. But at the end of the day, we're here and we have a really cool topic. We want to talk about creative financing and basically subject to transactions versus seller carry financing. So
I love the topic creative financing, just because a lot of people say creative financing, they're like, well, don't you just go to a bank and just get a loan? And I'm like, that's not creative. That's what everybody else does. Creative financing is a way for you to get properties or control properties with limited money out of pocket, limited credit use, limited exposure, I guess is another word you could say. And all the time, whenever we do any kind of creative financing, we always try to find a deal that we can help somebody out along the way. It helps us out along the way, and hopefully end up helping somebody else to end up getting a property, either rent it or purchase it, or somehow get somebody into that property. Yeah. And so I love creative financing. Everything I do, I look at how could we be creative about this. And somebody I was talking to one day, I was like, how could we be creative? He's like, well, do you have to be creative? I'm like, well, I don't have to be, but if we can, let's do it. Because if it could help you out, if it could help me out, why wouldn't we do something creatively?
Yeah, for sure. So I was actually talking to a guy earlier today, and he says, I'm really interested in creative financing, and can you tell me more about what that is? And we're like, first of all, what is your basis of understanding of creative financing? And his response was, well, the bank and hard money. And kind of like, okay, so is there anything else? So you have, your perception of what creative financing is. And so bank and hard money, those are two parts of a solution.
Yeah.
But there are dozens of other ways to be able to structure a deal.
And those two aren't very creative.
And those aren't very creative, right? So you have the bank that takes a long process to get there, and they're both two different approaches. Yep. And so then, diving into it, when we talk about creative financing, and we're going to address two topics today, subject to and seller carry. And I think to differentiate the two, typically a subject to is to help somebody that can't make their mortgage payment bring that current or take over those payments and help make sure that those payments are being made to secure the house and take care of it to where it's not going into foreclosure, it's not going to be lost, there isn't going to be equity lost. Now you have a transaction that says, I'm taking this note subject to. And we have two other episodes that talk specifically about subject to, but that transaction right there is a vehicle to not have to go and secure hard money lending or bank financing or private money or a seller carry doesn't necessarily make sense because there's funding that's already in place.
Yeah.
And
especially right now with interest rates as high as they are, some of those places you can get into subject to or owner financing have a 2 to 3% interest rate, which is awesome.
Yeah, I just took over one at 2.875.
That's awesome. And another thing about creative financing, which you was talking about subject to, is most people don't know what to do in a subject to situation. They're afraid, they're missing payments, they don't have any options. And so as investors, when you come in with that kind of a strategy, you're giving them options. Mm-hmm. You're helping them free up either the burden, free up maybe even some money, because we could help them out with a little bit of money depending on how much equity they have. We could catch up their payments or help them save their credit. So that's a whole strategy that's kind of the same thing as owner financing, but just completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and there's an important differentiation, right? Is seller carry is typically if somebody has no debt on the property.
Yes, or very little debt.
Or very little, and that debt can be satisfied. And then they can say, hey, I have a $100,000 property, I'll sell it to you for $100,000, and you come to me with $5,000 down, no down, $50,000 down, and I will become the bank on the remainder, and I will charge you interest for borrowing my money.
Yeah, and let's explain this a little bit. So you pay them not only what their payment is, but then usually somebody owner finance, they want a couple extra $100. And the benefits for him doing that is, because I've seen it on sometimes, even right on the MLS, owner will carry. Sometimes when they advertise it though, I want $150,000 down and I want to charge X amount of dollars per month. So it doesn't make much sense. But when somebody really wants some help, some of the reasons why they would do that is because maybe they're going to get nailed with a huge tax consequence if they sell a house for 200 grand and have to claim 200 grand as ordinary income. Yeah. But if they can have you or me give them 10 or 15 or 20,000 bucks and give them a little bit of money up front, then they'll claim taxes on that. And then we pay them over time a little bit of their equity and they carry it for us. And then we take it out of financing, because usually owner carry has some kind of a balloon, either 5 or 7 year. Then we buy it from them and then they pay taxes on that. So it spreads out their tax consequence big time. It can help them out a lot.
Yeah. No, and I love these different strategies. And let's talk about a couple of deals. So
okay.
I actually have one that I went to last night and sat down with this couple. It took us 3 different tries to get both of them sat down and have a conversation. And once we finally had both of them sat down, it was kind of like, we're here to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And share with us, how we can help. And they have medical bills, they have credit cards, and so when you have just a mortgage that's in foreclosure or that's in default, typically they have several other underlying things that have happened in their lives that need to be satisfied.
They got credit cards late, car payments that are late, power bills late. Yeah.
And so they have all these things that are stacking up. And so what we did is we came in and said, okay, help us understand your picture. Where's all the debt? Do you have a second mortgage? Do you have HELOCs? Do you have something else that's tying up the house? Because now we can come in and offer on this particular house. It's a $450,000 house. It has a couple $100,000 in debt owing. There's tens of thousands that are in back payments, and they need some of their equity in order to just feel like they can survive.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that we came with is, hey, we can come up with some cash, compensate you for your equity. We can come up with some cash to bring the note current, and then we can take over the remainder of that mortgage and we can start making those payments. And this does a couple of things for you. One is it puts cash in your pocket, and we can pay your next few months rent or your relocation fees or help get you moved there, put a deposit down on that next property, and we can actually take over your mortgage payments, which will stay in your name as the the mortgagee, I guess, and then us making those payments and satisfying it every single month is positive toward your credit rating.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to really highlight. I'm glad you said that, because some people are like, why would anybody do that? There's a couple of reasons. They could maybe just sell their house and just sell it outright, but that doesn't help repair their credit. A lot of times if you're in foreclosure and then you just pay the thing off, it actually hurts your credit more than if you start making your payments on time for 6 months. That'll repair your credit. The other one just gets rid of the burden. That's one. Point. But number two, what it does to help these people out is sometimes they don't have any money to do anything with. Like they like, okay, I sell this and I sell it and don't make anything. We can offer them, like you said, we can offer them a little cash. You can help take over the payments. They can use that money to relocate, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And then the other reason I think that people might want to do this, or it might be in their best interest, is their properties a lot of times are beat up. They're full of junk. They've got problems. They got water leaks, whatever it may be, and they don't have the money to do the fix-ups, so they can sell the house to get the most out of the property. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of things you're solving for them. Number one, you're just taking away the burden. Number two, you're taking over the payments and helping them repair their credit. Number three, you're going to take over this project, fix it up, and resell it so that you can either rent it or resell it, either one. But it's really a win-win. And a lot of times, like you said, you've tried to meet with them a couple of times, and a lot of times they're like, I know what they're going to do. And most of the time, they have no idea what you can do for them. And so once you explain that to them, how did they look when they were finally like, oh, I get it. Like, this may be a good value for us.
Well, the look on their face is like, wait, there's a path?
Yeah.
There's a path where I don't lose the house and I don't get anything. I don't just get kicked out by the sheriff. And so you could tell, like, the feeling was of relief already, and we hadn't even done anything yet other than talk about
because
what
now
we
they feel like they have options.
Yeah, we have the potential to get something done for them. And so they're providing statements to us. We're going to go and sit down with them again. We're going to get on the phone with the bank. We are making these things happen to where we become a problem solver. We come in and help them solve a problem that they don't have the resources or the knowledge to be able to get solved.
Yeah, love that. I tell people all the time, as a real estate investor, you are a problem solver. You really are. Sometimes you're even a marriage counselor, depending on what's going on with the couple you're talking to. I've been in some places for 3 hours, and I'm like, okay, let's move this along, just because they haven't had anybody to sit and talk with them. You don't learn this in high school. You don't learn how to balance a budget. You don't learn about credit card debt. You don't learn about interest. You don't learn about mortgages. You don't learn about any of this. But you're like, well, I know I want a mortgage. I know that's what I want to do because that's what everybody does. I want to buy a house because that's what everybody does. But you really don't know too much about it. And then when you start having a little bit of problems, then everybody wants to turn their back on you. Oh, that bank guy that got me in this loan that was my best friend that gave me a duffel bag or gave me whatever because I opened up an account there. Now once they want to foreclose on me, take my property. So everybody's friendly when everything's friendly, but when things start getting a little bit stressed, everybody comes out of the woodwork and starts hammering your phone. You got to make this payment. We're going to repo your car. We're going to, foreclose on this, foreclose on that, and people just feel stuck. And they're like, I want it to end. The pain. Some of them haven't slept in days. Mm-hmm. And it's so, you can come in there and help solve their problem, man, there's nothing better than that. And get a good deal too, so that you can turn around and either help out another family and rent it to them, or sell and make some money.
Yeah, and I'm very clear. Every single time I have one of these conversations, I say, look, I want to help you, but I also make money by doing this.
I'm glad you clarified that too, because I remember explaining to somebody and they're like, wait a second, how do you make money then? Why are you doing this? And I'm like, wow, I missed a big chunk of what I should have been explaining to them. So I told him a little bit more one more time. He's like, oh, okay, I'm okay with you making money. It's what he said. He goes, I just need out of this mess. I'm like, great. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, there's not a single transaction that we shouldn't go in with the mindset of making some sort of profit.
Yeah.
But we don't go in and put the profit as the only priority in there.
Yeah.
We're dealing with people's lives, right? And bad things happen to good people. We can go in and we can help these good people and we can solve their problems, and it's okay for us to be compensated.
Definitely.
And to be compensated well. I've invested, in formal education and non-traditional education, hundreds of thousands of dollars in education, just so that I can understand all of these principles and then be able to apply them to help solve these problems and help people.
Yeah.
And so that at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to accomplish: help people, but also we are looking to make money, and that's okay.
It is okay. My wife always says, we are not a nonprofit organization working from the discomfort of our own home. We've got to make a profit. You got to, or you can't keep doing what you do. And if we don't make money and make a profit, we can't help people. We really can't. No. We have helped some people without having a deal happen. We have done that. You get into it, you start helping out, and there's no deal, and we help as much as we can. But for the most part, we've got to make sure that we're taken care of so that we can do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
Because it's all about helping people.
Yeah.
So the owner financing part, just let's explain that real quick on what the difference is.
Okay. So we've talked subject to, now we're going to talk seller carry. Seller carry or owner financing is, you're basically going to an owner of a property. They don't owe any money on the property typically. Or they owe a very small amount. What you're doing is facilitating a transaction where it isn't in distress. They don't have to sell the property, but they may have different priorities or goals or wants and desires. And it may be that they just want to relocate to Arizona and not be in cold Idaho in the middle of winter while it's snowing and blowing and a couple inches down on the ground.
And they may need some cash up front and then a little bit of cash flow to live off of, which you could help solve both problems there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they don't need all of it up front. And so let's say it's a $200,000 property. You can come in and say, I will give you $200,000, but I'll also spread that over a period of time so that you're taxed on $20,000 of that every single year. And part of that is going to be interest. So instead of you getting $200,000, I'll pay you $300,000 over 10 years.
There you go. Love that. And they're probably like, what? How does that even work, right? Most of the people that I've talked to, they want to go to Arizona when they do want to do owner financing. And like you just said, it's if you can explain it right, because a lot of people are like, I don't get this. I don't want to be kicking anybody out. I don't want to be a landlord. And so you really got to be careful how you explain it, because I'm buying this property. I close at a title company with them. It's my property now. They're just the bank, basically. And so I make the payments through the escrow company. They make the payment to the bank. They make the payment to him. So it's all nice and clean. And then you just run that property as a rental property, or whatever you're going to do with it, depending if it's a commercial property, because you've dealt with a commercial property too, owner financing, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah. Which is basically the same type of thing. And then you're helping them out. And most of it, when I say, what can I do to help? What do you need? Well, I want to sell the property. But what do you actually need? Like, what do you need today? Well, I need cash. Okay, great. And then what else do you need? Well, I need some monthly. Great. How much is that? Well, man, if I get $1,000 a month and I could get, $30,000, I'd be pretty happy. Okay, now we got someplace to start. So I'm like, okay, how can we make this work? So here's your equity. This is how much is owed. So we make a plan and we help them get what they want, which helps me get what I want. Yeah. And most of the time when you explain it like that, they're like, wow, this is a great deal. If you just come in, hey, I want you to carry this and don't explain very much to them, they're not really hip on to doing it.
Yeah. Well, I love how you explain that too. You're solving the problem from a different direction. You're asking them what it is that they need. They don't necessarily just need an offer of $200,000. They don't necessarily just want somebody to come and say, I'll just pay you payments. You want to get down to the core and fundamental needs of, I need a little bit of cash,
Yep.
and then I need some cash over time.
Monthly cash flow. Yeah. In fact, the one guy I did an owner carry for, he's like, if you give me all $200,000, it was 225. He goes, I put that in the bank, it'll be gone in 2 years. My wife and he said, and me, he says, we will spend that. We'll like, it'll be burning a hole in our pocket. But if we can get $30,000 up front, and then we can get a couple $1,000 a month each month, he said that would solve our problem of spending all that money, and then we'll still have some money in the back end. I'm like, let's do it. Let's make this thing work for you.
Well, and what amazing foresight by a guy like that. Yeah. Saying, hey, you know what? I don't want that to just be gone, right? We can go buy vehicles and toys and all of these different things, and a couple $100,000 goes only so far.
It does.
But if they can spread that over time and they can make good financial decisions, that's empowering. Because there's not a lot of people that know how to deal with a sudden chunk of hundreds of thousands of dollars in their bank account, other than, it's there and ready to spend. And
ready to spend. That's what he said. He goes, I don't want my wife to see that every day when she checks the account balance and know she can go buy whatever she wants. She goes, you'll live on a budget, because he goes, this is part of our retirement. That was one thing. Another thing too, he goes, I don't want to mess with my retirement. This house and us paying it off, this is part of our retirement. He said, I do have a retirement too, but he goes, I don't want to just throw this away. And so he's really concerned about that. And so that's why we explained to him very well about how we do it, how it works, how his equity is protected, that whole deal. And when I told him we'll close at a title company, he was like, okay, that means you're doing it on the up and up. And I'm like, we always do things on the up and up, but I want to make sure it's done right, the paperwork's filed right, so that I'm liable, you carry, so that there's no frustration. Because I believe frustration happens when expectations aren't met, and expectations aren't met when expectations aren't clearly defined. And if you don't clearly define those expectations, then things can get frustrating because, hey, I thought you were going to do this, or I thought you were going to do that. No, that's not what I was going to do. Well, that's what you said. No, that's not what I said. So it's really good to clear that all out and write it all down. Then that way, when it ever comes up to whose job is what and who's supposed to do what, it's all clearly defined in there.
Well, and you have the professionals as third parties that can come in and verify, here's the documents, here's the rules, here's what we're going to abide by. And any one of us can reference and go to that third party and say, this is what we had agreed to, and I'm fulfilling it, or I'm not, or you're not, and we need to resolve this, and we can go to bat, and we can make sure that third party then helps be the mediator. Like, you have so many things that it protects the owner, the seller, it protects us, and at the end of the day, you've got a transaction that is a win-win-win.
And here's one of the things I love the most about owner carry, or even subject to. You start making those payments, and you make those payments on time, and you make those payments on time for 2, 3, 4 years. And if you run it through an escrow company, it's so that it's not you paying your brother or paying some guy that they don't know who it is. You're paying a title company, and the title company's paying the mortgage and paying the guy the overages. You can actually go to a regular institution, Wells Fargo, KeyBank, and refinance that property. Now, here's what's cool about that. Because if you just, a refinance is no money out of pocket, usually, no down payment. Maybe you've already given them a down payment. But sometimes, because of the equity, you could do a cash out refi. Say you love the property, say you did some fix-ups, you want to hold on to it for the next 30 years, maybe, depending on where you're at. You can go into a bank when it's time, if you have a 5-year balloon or a 7-year balloon, you get to the end of that 5 years, and maybe in 3 years, you're like, you know what, let's just pay this guy off. Talk to him, because you want to make sure that it's okay for him. He's like, nope, I don't want it for 5, which is fine, so with the 5 years, you walk into an institution, you put in a permanent financing, maybe do a cash out refi, so now you got your down payment back, you still got equity in the property, and you just got a dang good rental property. And because right now to buy a property at 6% or 7% interest may not make sense. But you do somebody does an owner care for you at 2 to 3%, and then maybe you wait a year or 2 years, when the interest rates drop back down, then you go and refinance it. So it's even a more win for you. I have refinanced with KeyBank. Right now, KeyBank's changed a few things, so they won't refinance me right now. Not because of me, but because what's going on with the economy. But there's other ones, and they'll open up their programs again. But I've refinanced probably 30 properties with KeyBank on an owner carrier subject to where I've gone in and just refinanced. And how many mortgages can you have in your own name?
I think 10 has been the limit for a long time.
8 to 10. But you can refinance 100. Refinancing, there is no limit because you already own it. The bank just wants that note. But to actually purchase, you're 8 to 10. Wow. So that's a little bit of a hack too.
Man, I think we're going to have to go over a lot of other creative strategies.
Yeah, definitely.
We're limited. I mean, at the end of the day, this is hard to cover all.
It is.
Just the few minutes that we have.
But hopefully this has piqued a little bit for you. Hopefully this has piqued your interest and you're like, wow, what are these guys talking about? This is awesome. It really is awesome. Every time I do a subject to or some kind of creative deal, I love it. I love it because not that I feel like I'm better than anybody else or I'm trying to cheat the system, but you're kind of cheating the system. The system is get a credit score, save up 20%, buy a property traditional, pay all this bank, all this extra money. And if you can break out of that norm, how awesome is that?
Yeah. No, it's pretty incredible. All these strategies just serve a purpose of acquiring more property, creating a profit center that can be all around real estate.
Yeah, love it. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Jason.